Okay, so there comes a point in time in every producer or audio engineer's life where you just need to upgrade. You feel like you've gotten as far as you can with a particular product, a particular thing, and you just need to upgrade it. And I needed to do that recently, so I want to talk about what that thing was and show you some stuff. So let's get into it.
At McCrae Music.
All right, how you guys doing? You blessed? I'm blessed. I pray that you are as well. Why don't you take a moment, hit like on this video real quick, and if you want to, subscribe to the channel and hit notifications so you can know when new things are coming out. So before I get into the upgrade that I made, I feel like I want to just talk just for a moment about how do we know when it's time to actually upgrade or make a purchase, right? And I think that's an important topic for us because in this music production, vocal production, audio engineering space, there's always something new, right? There's always some new plugin. There's always some new equipment. There's always just something new that you can buy, right? There's always different opinions about this is the industry standard for this, or this is how you should be doing that, or this is the way that you should do this thing over here. And if we're not careful, because not only is there new stuff to buy, oftentimes the stuff that we have to buy are not cheap. I feel sorry for my wife. Said, hun, what do you want? I don't know. Well, how about this compressor over here? It's only $3,000. Would you like to buy me that? If you're married to an engineer or to a producer, I'm so sorry, because the stuff that we want is just not cheap usually. It's usually pretty expensive and you're really making an investment. So we want to make sure we're making wise investments. So I want to give you guys a couple of tips of of how to know when it's time to make a purchase or make an upgrade. Thing number one is you have exhausted what a particular thing can do. Right? You have a particular instrument, a particular plugin, a piece of equipment, and you have pushed that thing literally to the limits of what it can do. You have exhausted your knowledge on the features of it, and it just doesn't do something that you need it to do. All right. Again, sometimes we can get caught up in something new, right? Oh, I want this new thing, when the thing that you already have could possibly do what it is that you need done. So that's the first thing. Make sure you've exhausted what that particular thing can do and really pushed it as far as it can go. That's thing number one. Another thing, or another reason to make an upgrade, is if you have a problem that needs to be solved, right? There's just something that is just not working in your studio. There's something that's not working in your production. There's something that you're finding yourself having to fight against, like you saw. If you have not caught up in the top, watch my video about the review of the Pro Q3. That was one of the reasons why I decided to make the jump to FabFilter in the Pro Q3, is I just found myself, one, I had felt I had exhausted the EQ I was using for that purpose before. And secondly, I was just running into problems that I needed to be resolved. I felt I was fighting against my equipment, fighting against my plugin, and I needed something that I wasn't fighting against. I needed something that was working with me, right? So if you have a problem that you need a solution to, that is another reason to upgrade. Another reason to upgrade, number three, would be if there is just something that you need to do or something that you need done that the stuff you have just doesn't do, right? You need a feature, you need a sound, you're trying to get from point A to point B, and you recognize that you just don't have what it takes to get there, equipment-wise, plugin-wise, space-wise. That's another reason to maybe pursue making an upgrade, making a purchase, right? And thing number four, you have found something that is going to make life easier within the realm of whatever it is that you're doing, right? So you've been using what you have to get things done, and you recognize that there is a tool, there is some equipment, there's something that's going to allow you to do it in one step instead of 5, or in 2 steps instead of 4, right? And it's just going to make life easier. It's going to make your time more efficient. That is another reason to upgrade. All right. And so the reason that I made this particular upgrade was reason number 4, for one thing, and then probably with a hint of reasons number 1 and 2. I made the jump to Native Instrument Session Horns Pro. I've been looking at Session Horns Pro for quite some time. I had in the complete package, I believe I had like complete 7. It was an old complete package. I had Session Horns, like the basic version, and it did well for me for many years. It did well for me for a while, but I got to the point where I have several projects. I had a project I was working on that I'm going to show you here, but then also I have several other projects coming up, some theatrical projects and just some other things that I'm going to be doing a lot of horns work in. And I recognize that it was just time, right? I had pushed the basic version of Session Horns as far as it could. The way I was using it was causing me to have to do a little bit more work in order to get all the intricacies and the things, the different articulations that I wanted. I had to have many different instances of it in my session, which is taking up processing power and just doing other things. And so it was just time. It was time to make the jump. So let's take a look at Session Horns Pro. I'll compare it to the basic version of Session Horns, and I'll show you an example of how I used it in a song I just finished producing and mixing for an artist. And we'll talk about my feelings on Session Horns Pro and was it worth the investment? Because again, not a cheap investment, but was it worth the investment? We'll talk about that. Let's get into it. All right, so here we are in session. This is not the actual session. I pulled the horns out and put it in here, and then I also have the finished mix of the song. The song has actually been mixed and mastered. This is the finished mix, just so you can hear how the horns work in the actual overall mix. All right. So here I've got Session Horns Pro, and here I actually still have an instance of the basic Session Horns, and I'll talk about why I needed that. I was actually surprised that I needed it, but I needed that. But here is the thing. So let's pull up Session Horns Pro, and here are 2 of the main reasons why I wanted to switch to Session Horns Pro. So first of all, I have the ability here in Session Horns Pro to just have access to more horns. All right. Session Horns Basic gives you 2 trumpets. It gives you a saxophone and a trombone. And you can't really control where they are in the arrangement. They're just there. I'll show you that in a minute. Here with Session Horns Pro, I am able to come into each one and I can load. And I could load, I have bass trombone and saxophone, bass and tenor trombone, even single instruments. I have a tuba, I have a bass trombone, baritone sax, right? I just didn't have those horns inside of basic Session Horns, right? Even if we come over here to like where the trumpets are, it gives me I got a muted trumpet. I got a flugelhorn to play around with, an alto sax. We just have more horns to choose from, all right? So I found myself when I was using Session Horns Basic, let's just pull up Session Horns Basic real quick here, since I do have that in this session. We'll close this so you're not confused. And you can see, right, we just have these. I can't choose what horns I have. I have 2 trumpets, I believe, and I've got a saxophone and a trombone right here, right? And that's it. I can't control what instruments I have or where they are in the horn session, right? Or horn section. And because of this, I found myself having to insert many, many, many different channels for horns, right? If I wanted to have a baritone sax, I had to have a whole separate channel for that. If I wanted to have a tenor sax or an alto sax, I had to insert a whole separate channel for that, right? And there might still be times where I'll need to do that because maybe I'm kind of having the saxophones do different things from the trumpets and what have you, and that's fine. But just to get the basic sound that I wanted from like a general horn section, I had to insert all these different instances of session horns, and that's processing power, and it just causes issues in a really large session. What I ended up having to do is create a whole separate session just for orchestration. So just for strings and horns, I would do all that in just a completely different session because the load time for the session would be long because I had all these different instances and native instrument stuff. I love it, but sometimes the samples can take a little bit longer to load. So that was one issue. But here's another thing. So if we go back to session horns, I have an option here for key switches, right? And all these key switches, I can assign different articulations, right? So right now, if we go to session horns, it's just on a regular vibrato, right? But I can come here and I can switch, and I'll just do it with the mouse here. I could switch to, I have non-vibrato. I have a crescendo, right? I could do a crescendo 4-beat or 2-beat. Here's a 2-beat one, actually. It's faster. I've got rip horns, right? Growl horns. And the cool thing is I can use key switches. So while I'm recording, I could come down here and I'm going to use my my MIDI controller now. I'm pressing my MIDI controller and I can use keys on my MIDI controller to trigger or switch articulations, right? Which is fantastic because, as you know, if you're listening to horns, horns aren't always doing the same thing. If you have actual horn players, right, there's times there's going to be vibrato, there's times there's not. There's times they're going to crescendo, there's times it's going to rip or growl. And I want to be able to do that all on the same channel. Now, Session Horns Basic, if we jump back over to that, it has articulations, but I can only assign one articulation per. So this one, I have the fall articulation, right? If I wanted a different articulation, I can't do it, right? I'd have to, it has the articulations here, but, if I wanted to switch to this, right, I have to do that. So I would have to basically insert multiple instances for every instrument. So like if I had a separate thing just for trumpets, because you can do, like single instruments. So if I had a separate thing just for trumpets and then I had another one with saxophones or whatever, I would have to then also insert multiple tracks for each articulation I wanted to do and then just record MIDI on that particular channel for that articulation. So I would have upwards of 10 tracks or more just for horns sometimes. And again, that can be very process intensive. It takes a longer time for the sessions to load. It's just frankly just a lot more work because I have to go back and re-record. Okay, let's not play this part here. We're going to re-record that over here because I want this articulation. It's a lot. With session horns, as you can see here, I'm going to play these horns for you. I have different articulations happening, and it's all on this one instance of Session Horns Pro. Now, the reason why I still have Session Horn Basic here is because, to my surprise, Session Horns Pro does not have a fall articulation. If we look at these articulations here, there's no fall. I have all this other cool stuff, but for some reason, they don't have the slow or fall fast, which I don't understand why that is, but, this right here. Right? I want to be able to do that, right? And for some reason, unless if some of you use Session Horns Pro and maybe it's there and I just didn't see it, it's not there. So I still had to use just one for the fall horns. But even with that, okay, 2 channels instead of 10, cool, I could work with that. All right, so let me actually pull up Session Horns Pro here so that you can see the key switches happening while it's actually playing through. Let's go. So here's a horn line. I'll play this section for you. All vibrato there. It's going to switch. That is great. All that was on one. So you saw it switching. I went from vibrato to non-vibrato, vibrato to a 2-beat crescendo, vibrato to a growl, vibrato to a rip. Right? That's really cool, right? So this is solving problems for me. What did I say about when to upgrade, right? We have a problem we want to solve. We have something we need to make our life easier. This is doing these things for me. And also, I just had reached the end of what I could do with basic session horns. I needed more horn choices. I needed more articulations, right? I just needed more flexibility, and this gave that to me. Let's hear how it sounds in the context of the mix. I'll play that same section, but in the context of the full mix. That sounds, this is amazing, and it really got the job done for me. So Session Horns Pro is the way to go. All right, guys, so of course, you know, I like to give you recommendations if you are interested in this actual product. On Native Instruments website right now, Session Horns Pro runs at $300 for the full version. It is $200 for the upgrade if you qualify for that. And you can take a look. It'll have you sign in if you already are a Native Instruments owner. You can sign in and it'll let you know if you can actually do the upgrade. So that is there. So again, not cheap, but again, it is worth it. Now, here's the other thing. I always like to recommend when you can to get a bundle. Now, if you are into Session Horns Pro, if that's specifically what you want, unfortunately, you are going to have to get, if you want a bundle, you're going to have to get the complete ultimate bundle. And I say unfortunately because the complete ultimate bundle is about $1,200. It's a pretty steep investment. You get a ton of stuff, right? You know, look at all this stuff you get. Like, you get a ton of stuff. But it is a fairly steep investment. But if you are a big Native Instruments person, I love Native Instruments. They actually have a lot of great stuff. I don't have complete 14, and I don't see myself upgrading to that anytime soon. But the stuff I do have is really good, right? So if you want Session Horns Pro in a bundle, you got to get complete ultimate. Now, if you just want, if you want a bundle and you want to just have regular Session Horns, which, don't get me wrong, the regular Session Horns is good. It just doesn't have all the things that Session Horns Pro does. Well, then you can just get the regular complete standard, and the complete standard bundle is half of the ultimate. Complete standard is $600. Again, still a lot of money, but compared to $1,200, it's not as much. You also can update or upgrade if you have a previous version of complete standard. If we looked at the instruments, I won't go through all of them, but you will see that Session Horns, the regular Session Horns, not Session Horns Pro, is a part of that standard package. Okay, so as you can see, Session Horns Pro was absolutely a good investment. I am very, very well pleased with what I've gotten out of it so far. So far, I have produced 2 songs using it. I'm very well pleased. It's doing exactly what I needed it to do, and it's making my life easier. And I hope that this video has also helped you to maybe come to a decision or a conclusion, maybe not with Session Horns, maybe you're good there, but maybe there's some other area where you're thinking about upgrading. And I hope the tips I gave you at the beginning and kind of walking through what I'm doing and how it worked for me, I hope that could be helpful to you in deciding whether or not it's time for you to make an upgrade and make whatever the investment is that you are thinking about making. All right, leave a like on the video. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications if you would please be so kind as to do that. And also leave comments in the comment section. I always love conversing with you guys, talking with you guys. If you have questions or any particular things you would like for me to show, leave a comment, and you never know, I just might make a video about it. All right, until next time, guys, I always enjoy sharing with you. Looking forward to seeing you next time, all right?